For 400 years, the Krethian dominion had marched across the stars like a dark storm that never ended. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted. 67 civilizations had fallen before them. Some had tried to fight. Others had begged for peace. None of it mattered. The Krethians always won. Their ships were massive, covered in weapons that could turn planets into ash. Their soldiers were brutal warriors who knew only conquest. When their fleet arrived in a star system, hope died with the light of those distant suns. Supreme Commander Varnrex stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Eternal Dominance. He was tall and powerful, with dark scales that seemed to absorb the light around him. His eyes glowed red like burning coals. Around his neck hung 67 medallions, one for each civilization he had personally destroyed. Today, he would add another. Below his ship, the peaceful colony world of Selen rotated slowly. Its blue oceans and green continents reminded him of dozens of other worlds he had conquered. The Selen people were farmers and artists. They had no real military. They had no chance. Varnrex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This would be over by sunset. The harvest of worlds, the Krethian attack, began with silence. Their massive dreadnoughts appeared in orbit without warning, blocking out the sun. On the surface, Selen families looked up at the sky and saw death descending. The orbital bombardment started moments later. Bright beams of red energy struck the planet's defense stations, turning them into clouds of fire and metal. The Selen military had 12 small patrol ships. They launched bravely, firing their simple weapons at the invaders. The Krethian fleet destroyed all 12 in less than 3 minutes. It was not a battle. It was extermination. Ground forces landed in massive drop pods that crashed through buildings and streets. Krethian soldiers poured out, their armor black as midnight, their weapons humming with deadly energy. They moved through cities like a plague, capturing anyone who could work and killing anyone who resisted. The Selen people ran, screaming, trying to save their children. But there was nowhere to run. The Krethians were everywhere. By the time the sun began to set, half the planet was already under their control. Varnrex watched from orbit, his face showing no emotion. This was how it always went. This was how it would always go. The strong ruled. The weak served or died. It was the way of the universe. A witness in the dark, Captain Marcus Chin, had been in the wrong place at the worst possible time. His research vessel, Horizon's Edge, had been studying cosmic radiation in the outer system when the Krethian fleet arrived. His ship was small and unarmed, designed for science, not war. When his sensors detected the massive energy signatures, Chen ordered his crew to hide behind one of Selen's outer moons. From there they watched in horror as an entire civilization was destroyed in a single day. Chen's hand shook as he gripped his command chair. His crew sat in stunned silence, tears running down their faces. "We have to do something," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, the ship's communications officer. Her voice cracked with emotion. "We can't just watch them die." Chen closed his eyes. He wanted to help. Every part of his soul screamed at him to intervene. But what could one small research ship do against a fleet of warships? His crew of 15 scientists against thousands of trained killers? It would be suicide, and it would accomplish nothing. "We can't save them," Chen said quietly, each word like swallowing glass. "But we can warn Earth. We can make sure humanity knows what's coming." He turned to his pilot. "Calculate a jump to Earth. Maximum speed. We leave in 5 minutes." As the Horizon's Edge prepared to flee, Chen recorded everything his sensors could capture. The size of the Krethian ships, their weapons, their tactics. Every piece of information might save lives later. On his screen, he watched Selen's cities burn. He watched families torn apart. He recorded it all, knowing these images would haunt him forever. But Earth needed to see this. Humanity needed to understand what was coming for them. "Jump calculated, Captain," his pilot announced. Chen took one last look at the dying world below. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the people he couldn't save. "I'm so sorry." Then the Horizon's Edge. jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished into the darkness between stars. The warning 3 days later. Captain Chen stood before the Earth Defense Council in Geneva. The room was filled with admirals, generals, and politicians from every nation on Earth. They sat in tiered seats, looking down at him like judges. On the massive screen behind him played the footage from Ceylan. The council members watched in silence as a world died. Some turned away. Others stared with hard faces, their hands clenched into fists. When the video ended, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Admiral Patricia Okonkwo was the first to speak. She was a tall woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. "How many ships in their fleet, Captain?" Chen pulled up his data. "We counted 153 vessels, Admiral. But intelligence suggests that's only their forward fleet. Their full armada could be 3 times that size." A murmur ran through the council. Someone cursed quietly. Okonkwo's face remained calm, but Chen saw her jaw tighten. "And their technology?" Chen brought up the analysis his science team had prepared. "Superior to ours in almost every way. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are stronger. Their ships are bigger and faster. Based on our projections..." He paused, not wanting to say the next words. "Based on our projections, our entire defense fleet couldn't stop them." The council erupted in argument. Some demanded immediate mobilization. Others wanted to try diplomacy. A few suggested evacuating Earth entirely. Through it all, Admiral Okonkwo sat quietly, her eyes distant. Finally, she raised her hand. The room fell silent. "Captain Chen, in your professional opinion, would the Krethians accept our surrender?" Chen thought about the burning cities of Ceylan, the families torn apart, the 67 medallions around Varnrex's neck. "No, Admiral," he said. "I don't think they know what surrender means. They only understand conquest." Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Then we have no choice but to fight, even if we can't win." She stood, and every person in the room stood with her. "Activate all defense protocols. Recall every ship to Earth. Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel to the outer colonies." She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes, "and pray that we can find a way to stop them, because if we can't, humanity dies with Earth." Back in the Ceylan system, Varnrex received a report that irritated him. A small ship had been detected fleeing the system during the invasion. His security officer displayed the sensor logs. The vessel was primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. It had no weapons. It posed no threat, but it had witnessed the conquest, and it had escaped. "What species?" Varnrex demanded. His officer checked the database. "Unknown, Commander. The ship's design doesn't match any civilization in our records, but we intercepted a fragment of their communication. They called themselves ... humans, from a system called Sol." Varnrex pulled up the galactic map. Sol system was 7 jumps away in a relatively unexplored region of space. Initial scans showed it had several inhabited worlds and some basic orbital defenses. Nothing impressive, just another primitive species that thought it was safe. The Supreme Commander smiled his terrible smile. "How convenient. We were running low on slave workers." Turned to his navigation officer. "Plot a course to this Sol system. We'll deal with these humans next. Make an example of them so the rest of the galaxy understands that witnessing our glory comes with a price." The officer hesitated. "Commander, intelligence shows humans have been spacefaring for less than 200 years. They barely have a defense fleet. This seems beneath your attention." Varnrex's eyes flared with anger. "Nothing is beneath my attention when it comes to maintaining our reputation. Every species must learn that you cannot see the Dominion's power and live to spread tales about it. These humans will become lesson number 68. He touched the medallions around his neck, already imagining the new one he would add. "Besides, their system appears to have valuable resources. We'll take their worlds, break their spirits, and add them to our empire, just like all the others." Humanity's impossible choice, the Horizon's Edge, had delivered its warning, but it came with terrible news. The Krethian fleet was already moving toward human space. Long-range sensors detected their massive ships crossing the void between stars. They would reach the outer colonies in 3 weeks. Earth itself would fall under attack in 5 weeks. Admiral Okonkwo stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. Surrounded by tactical displays and frantic officers, every screen showed the same thing: humanity. I was not ready for this fight. Earth's defense fleet consisted of 42 warships, impressive by human standards but pathetic compared to the Krethian armada. The ships were scattered across a dozen star systems, protecting colonies and trade routes. Recalling them all would take weeks, and even then, the numbers were wrong. 42 ships against over 400. The math was simple and brutal. Humanity would lose. What about the outer colonies? Asked General James Martinez, commander of Earth's ground forces. Can we evacuate them before the Krethians arrive? Okonkwo shook her head. We don't have enough transport ships. She turned to Park. James, I need you to coordinate with the colony evacuation. Find out exactly how much time they need. Park worked as consul, connecting to the Proxima relay station. The administrator's face appeared on the screen, haggard and exhausted. Commander Reeves, please tell me you're here to help with the evacuation. Sarah nodded. We're here to buy you time. How long do you need to get everyone off the station? The administrator checked his data. We've got 5,000 people still waiting for transport. At current evacuation rate, we need 3 more days. But the Krethians will be here in 6 days. We should have time. You'll have time, Sarah promised. We'll make sure of it. Get those people on ships and get them to safety. Don't worry about us. The administrator's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Commander. Thank you for giving us a chance. After the call ended, Park turned to Sarah. 3 days isn't long. If we can delay the Krethians even a little, it'll save all those lives. Sarah nodded. Then that's what we'll do. One way or another. The Krethian fleet approaches in the darkness between stars. The Krethian armada moved with terrible purpose. 153 ships flying in perfect formation, their hulls black against the void. At the center of the fleet, aboard the Eternal Dominance, Supreme Commander Varn Rex studied reports about his next conquest. The humans were even weaker than he had expected. Their technology was primitive. Their military was scattered. This would be the easiest conquest in recent memory. Commander, we're detecting a transmission from the human colony ahead, his communications officer announced. They're broadcasting evacuation warnings. It appears they know we're coming. Varn Rex's mouth parts twisted in what passed for amusement among his species. Of course they know. Their little spy ship warned them. Let them run. Let them feel the fear. It makes the conquest more satisfying when they realize running is useless. Returned to his tactical officer. Increase speed. I want to reach their colony before they finish evacuating. I want them to watch as we destroy their ships full of refugees that will break their spirit faster than any weapon. The fleet accelerated, moving faster through the void. Varnrix touched the 67 medallions around his neck. Soon there would be 68. The humans would learn what every other species had learned. Resistance was futile. The Dominion always won. But something nagged at Varnrix's mind, a small detail in the reports that bothered him. The human spy ship had been quick and clever, escaping before his fleet could intercept it. The humans had been spacefaring for less than 200 years, yet their technology showed unexpected sophistication. They were young and primitive, yes, but they were learning fast. Varnrex had conquered many civilizations, but the dangerous ones were always the ones that adapted quickly. He pushed the thought aside. It didn't matter how fast humans learned. They didn't have time to catch up. In 6 days, his fleet would arrive at their colony, and the lesson would begin. The humans would fall like all the others. Varnrex was certain of it. First contact, the Defiant arrived at Proxima Relay Station for days before the Krethian fleet. The station was in chaos, ships coming and going constantly as the evacuation continued. Sarah watched from the bridge as transport vessels loaded with refugees departed toward safer systems. Children pressed their faces against viewports, watching their home disappear behind them. Sarah's chest tightened. Those children deserved to grow up. Those families deserved a future. And she was going to buy them that future no matter what it cost. Commander, "We're receiving a transmission from the station administrator," Kelly announced. On screen appeared the same haggard face from before, but now there was hope, mixed with the exhaustion. "Commander Reeves, you actually came." Sarah gave a small smile. "I said we would." "How's the evacuation?" The administrator checked his displays. "We're ahead of schedule now. If we can maintain this pace for 2 more days, everyone will be safe. We've detected the Krethian fleet. They're coming fast." "We'll handle the Krethians," Sarah assured him. "You focus on getting your people out. And Administrator, when you're safe, make sure people remember what happened here. Make sure they know humanity fought back." The Administrator nodded, understanding. This might be the Defiant's last battle. These might be Sarah's last words. "We'll remember, Commander. The whole galaxy will remember." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. Park approached quietly. "The crew is ready. All systems are green. We're as prepared as we can be." Sarah stood and straightened her uniform. "Then let's take our positions. Tanaka, bring up your tactical plan. Ramirez, I need engines at 100%. Webb, have security teams ready for boarding action if it comes to that." She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. "Not everyone remember, we're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Every minute we keep them busy is another minute for those refugees to escape. We fight smart, we fight dirty, and we make them bleed for every inch." The crew responded with determination. They moved to their stations, hands steady despite the fear they must have felt. The Defiant began moving toward the asteroid field, taking position for the coming battle. 2 days later, long-range sensors detected the Krethian fleet. They appeared like a dark stain spreading across the stars, too many ships to count. Sarah watched them approach, her heart pounding but her hands steady on the command chair. "Status on the evacuation?" she asked. Park checked his console. "Last transport just departed. All 5,000 colonists are away. The station is empty." A weight lifted from Sarah's chest. The mission was already a success. Everyone who could be saved was saved. It was just the Defiant against the Armada. Now, it was time to show the Krethians that humanity didn't surrender. "All crew, this is the commander," Sarah announced, shipwide. "The civilians are safe. Our mission is complete. Everything from this point forward is about sending a message. The Krethians think they're unstoppable. Let's prove them wrong. Battle stations, everyone, this is it." Alarms sounded throughout the ship as the Defiant went to full combat readiness. Blast doors sealed. Weapons powered up. Experimental systems hummed with deadly potential. On the bridge, Sarah watched the Krethian fleet grow larger on the sensors. Her crew watched with her, silent and ready. "Tanaka, activate Ghost Protocol," Sarah ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." The Defiant seemed to shimmer and then vanished from every sensor in the system. It was still there, still dangerous, but invisible to enemy detection. Sarah smiled grimly. Time to hunt. Part 3. The stand that changed everything. The first strike. The Krethian Advanced Fleet moved into the Proxima system with absolute confidence. 28 warships, more than enough to handle a single human colony. Commander Zalter led the advance force from his cruiser, the Dark Vengeance. He had participated in 37 conquests and had never encountered serious resistance. These humans would be no different. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Locate their defensive forces and destroy them." His sensor officer worked the controls, then paused with confusion. "Commander, I'm detecting no defensive vessels. The colony station appears abandoned." "There's nothing here." Zaltor's sensory organs twitched with suspicion. "Nothing? They evacuated already?" His tactical officer confirmed it. "All transport signatures indicate departure 2 days ago. They knew we were coming and ran." Zalter felt a moment of disappointment. He had hoped for at least token resistance. Crushing enemies who fought back was more satisfying than destroying empty stations. "Very well, destroy the station anyway. Then we'll pursue their refugee ships," and he never finished the sentence. The Defiant materialized directly behind the rearmost Krethian destroyer. It had been there all along, invisible and waiting. The plasma lance fired at point-blank range. A brilliant beam of concentrated energy that punched through the destroyer's shields and hull like they were made of paper. The ship exploded in a bloom of fire and debris, Before the Krethians could react, the Defiant vanished again, slipping back into stealth. "Report!" Zaltar roared, his calm shattered. "What was that?" "Unknown vessel, Commander." It appeared, fired, and disappeared. Our sensors couldn't track it. Zaltar's mind raced. Stealth ship? The humans had stealth technology? It changed everything. All ships, defensive formation. Active scans on all frequencies. Find that ship. Krethian fleet scrambled to respond, but they were looking for an enemy they couldn't see. The Defiant struck again, this time from above. It appeared in the middle of their formation, fired a spread of missiles at 2 cruisers. It vanished before the counterfire arrived. Both cruisers took heavy damage, one losing its main engines. The Krethian fleet was in chaos. On the Defiant's bridge, Sarah watched the tactical display with satisfaction. 2 ships destroyed, 3 heavily damaged. Not bad for 30 seconds of work. Tanaka grinned. They're completely off balance. Ghost Protocol is working better than expected. But Ramirez's voice crackled over the come from engineering. "Commander, I'm reading power fluctuations in the stealth system. We can do maybe 3 more strikes before we risk permanent damage." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. Experimental technology always had limits. Understood. We'll make the next 3 count. Zaltar was not stupid. He realized quickly that he was facing an enemy unlike any he'd encountered before. The human ship was smaller than his cruisers, but far more dangerous. It struck without warning and disappeared before his weapons could lock on. 2 of his ships were destroyed, 3 more damaged. And he still hadn't seen the enemy clearly. "Analysis," he demanded. His science officer pulled up what little data they had collected. "The vessel appears to be using some form of advanced stealth technology. When it attacks, we get brief sensor readings. The ship is approximately 500 meters long, with unusual power signatures. Its weapons are extremely powerful, possibly experimental technology. Can we counter their stealth?" Zaltar asked. The officer hesitated. "Not with our current systems. But if we can damage them enough to disable the stealth system, we can track and destroy them." Zaltar considered his options. He had 25 ships remaining in his advance force. The human ship was alone. Even with stealth technology, 1 ship couldn't defeat 20, unless he let fear control his tactics. All ships spread out into search pattern Delta. Maintain active scanning. When the human ship attacks again, all vessels immediately converge on that position. We'll trap them with numbers. The Defiant struck again, targeting a destroyer at the edge of the Krethian formation. But this time, the Krethians were ready. The moment the Defiant appeared, every ship in the area opened fire. The Defiant's shields flared under the barrage as Sarah shouted orders. "Evasive. Get us out of here." The ship twisted and dove, using its superior maneuverability to avoid most of the incoming fire. But not all of it. Several hits struck the hull and alarms blared. "Shield generators damaged," Park reported. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 6. Ghost Protocol offline?" "Switch to conventional combat," Sarah ordered. "Tanaka, find us cover in the asteroid field." "Ramirez, I need those shields back online." The Defiant raced toward the dense cluster of asteroids, Krethian ships in pursuit. Without the stealth system, they were exposed and outnumbered. But the battlefield was about to change. The Defiant plunged into the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks that spun through space. The Krethian ships followed, but their larger size made them less maneuverable. 2 cruisers collided with asteroids, suffering heavy damage. A destroyer was crushed between 2 massive rocks. The human ship seemed to dance through the obstacles that destroyed its enemies. Zaltar watched from his flagship, fury building in his chest. The humans were making fools of his fleet. All ships fire at the asteroids near the human vessel, collapse their cover. The Krethian fleet opened fire, shattering asteroids into deadly fragments. The Defiant took multiple impacts from debris, more damage adding to the growing list. In engineering, Ramirez and his team worked frantically to keep critical systems online. Reactor output dropping. Shield generators at 30%. Weapon systems overheating. Sarah heard the reports but kept her focus. "Tanaka, next target." Their commander? The cruiser Dark Vengeance. That's their command ship. Sarah didn't hesitate. All weapons. Fire. The Defiant unleashed everything it had. Plasma lance, missiles, railguns, all striking the Dark Vengeance. Zalter's shields held, but barely. His ship shuddered under the assault. Return fire. Kill that human ship. But the Defiant was already moving, using a large asteroid as cover. The Krethian response struck only rock and debris. The sacrifice play of the battle raged for 3 hours. The Defiant used every trick Sarah and her crew could think of. They used asteroids as weapons, shoving them toward enemy ships. They fired from behind cover, exposing themselves for only seconds at a time. They targeted damaged ships, finishing off vessels that were already wounded. Slowly, the Krethian advance force was being torn apart. But the Defiant was dying too. Hull breaches on 12 decks. Shields at 15%. Half the weapon systems offline. Life support failing in multiple sections. Crew casualties mounting. Dr. Kim's medical bay was filled with wounded. And still the Krethians kept coming. "Commander, we've got a problem," Park said quietly, pulling up a sensor reading. The main Krethian fleet just entered the system. 125 ships. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. The advanced fleet had nearly killed them. The main fleet would finish the job in seconds. But they had bought the time they needed. The colonists were safe, far from Proxima now. Earth had been warned. The mission was complete. All that remained was sending the message. "How many of the advanced fleet have we destroyed?" she asked. Tanaka checked. 14 ships destroyed. 8 heavily damaged. Only 3 are still fully combat capable. Sarah smiled despite everything. 22 Krethian ships eliminated or crippled by 1 human vessel. That was a message. That would make them think twice. "Set course toward the main fleet," she ordered. Park stared at her. "Commander, you heard me? Set course toward them. Full speed. Ramirez, I need you to prepare the reactor for emergency overload." Understanding dawned on the bridge. Sarah was planning to ram the Krethian flagship, to turn the Defiant into a massive bomb. Commander Park said carefully, "We could still escape. Jump to FTL and withdraw. And let them think humans run when things get hard?" Sarah shook her head. "No, we're going to show them that humans fight to the last. We're going to show them that even when we lose, we make them pay." She activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the commander. Begin immediate evacuation to escape or tray. Continue to halves pods. You have 15 minutes. Anyone who wants to stay and help me pilot the ship can remain, but everyone else needs to get off now. That's an order." The crew's choice for a moment, nobody moved. Then Dr. Kim's voice came over the comm from medical. "Commander, I'm staying. Someone needs to keep the injured stable until the pods launch." Webb's gruff voice followed. "Security teams will ensure orderly evacuation. Then I'm coming to the bridge. You'll need someone watching your back." One by one, voices called out across the ship. Engineers volunteering to keep the reactor stable. Gunners staying at their damaged weapons. Bridge crew refusing to leave their posts. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm giving you all a chance to live." "Take it." Park stepped beside her command chair. "With respect, Commander, you can't fly this ship alone. You need a crew, and we need to finish what we started." Tanaka nodded. "I'm not leaving until I see that flagship burn." Ramirez's voice crackled from engineering. "I've been with this ship since she was built. If she's going out, I'm going out with her." Sarah looked around the bridge at faces filled with determination and fear and pride. These people weren't just her crew, they were her family. And they had all chosen to stand together. "Fine," she said, her voice rough with emotion. "But the wounded, the non-essential personnel, they evacuate. Everyone else, you have 10 minutes to say your goodbyes and make peace with your decisions." The next 10 minutes were the longest of Sarah's life. Throughout the ship, crew members recorded final messages to loved ones. They hugged each other, cried, laughed at old jokes one last time. Dr. Kim moved through medical, stabilizing the wounded for evacuation. The escape pods launched in waves, carrying away everyone who could be spared. In the end, 47 crew members remained aboard the Defiant. 47 people who chose death over surrender. 47 humans who would teach the galaxy what humanity meant.
Oh, yes.
All escape pods away, Park reported. The wounded are clear. It's just us now, Sarah nodded. Ramirez's status on the reactor? The engineer's voice was surprisingly calm. I can give you one massive overload when you need it. The explosion will be ... significant. Any Krethian ship within 5 kilometers will be destroyed. Anything within 10 will be severely damaged. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Krethian main fleet was approaching in their standard formation. With the massive flagship Eternal Dominance at the center, Supreme Commander Varnrax himself would be on that ship. Then let's make sure we get close enough to take that flagship with us. The final run, the Defiant emerged from the asteroid field, battered and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. To the Krethians, it looked like a defeated ship, making a desperate escape. Zoltar, still commanding what remained of his advanced fleet, smiled with satisfaction. The human ship is fleeing. All vessels pursue and destroy. But Supreme Commander Vonrex, watching from the Eternal Dominance, was not so certain. He had been studying the battle reports. One human ship had destroyed or crippled 22 Krethian vessels. That ship, damaged as it was, had fought with tactics and courage, unlike anything he had seen before. Sensor analysis of the human vessel, he ordered. His science officer complied. The ship is heavily damaged, Commander. Multiple hull breaches, power systems failing, shields nearly gone. But... The officer paused. But what? Varnrex demanded. Their reactor is operating at 140% capacity and rising. That's far beyond safe operational parameters. Varnrex's eyes widened in understanding. The humans weren't fleeing. They were attacking. All ships? Evasive action? That ship is going too. The Defiant suddenly accelerated, its damaged engines screaming as Ramirez pushed them beyond any reasonable limit. The ship shot toward the Krethian fleet like a missile, heading straight for the Eternal Dominance.